Chapter 1091 Behind the Cockroach Tide. Zhang Yi frowned as he looked at the dying Qinling. He took out the antidote and antibiotics from the alien space and rolled to the side of the doctor. The doctor at the base saw this good stuff and hurriedly gave it to Qinling. "How is it? Can it save his life?" Zhang Yi asked. Several doctors were busy sweating. A doctor said with shame, "We need to draw blood for testing. General Chun is infected with a very serious bacteria, and the medical level of our base is not enough." Zhang Yi rubbed his forehead. "Wait." He turned and left, and brought Zhou Ke back soon. Zhou Ke had already put on medical equipment and walked to Qinling's bed. Now her ability is stronger than before. A soft white light appeared in her hands and gently swept over Qinling's body, just like an X-ray, and checked the situation inside his body clearly. It is indeed a serious bacterial infection. She quickly gave Qinling medicine. After a busy period, the black on Qinling's face finally faded. But he looked terribly weak, his face was pale. After opening his eyes, he saw Zhang Yi and Zhou Ke, and his face was immediately filled with shame. "Boss, I'm sorry, He pursed his dry lips, not knowing what to say at this time. Zhang Yi looked down at him and asked lightly, "Why are you so embarrassed? Didn't I remind you to be careful of attacks from mutant creatures? Even if I didn't say it, after Tianhai City experienced a zombie tide, didn't you learn a lesson?" "Qinling, Zhang Yi turned his head to look at Lu Dehai not far away, and Lu Dehai quickly bowed to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi said, "From now on, the Chaoyu base will be temporarily handed over to Lu Dehai for management. Qinling will be demoted to deputy, and you should take good care of your illness for the time being." Lu Dehai couldn't help his inner excitement and quietly clenched his fists. This opportunity he finally waited for. The opportunity to become a superior person. His two brothers Rong Lei and Yu Gang looked at each other excitedly, full of relief. In the previous battle, they were also very brave, just to not drag their brothers down. Now it is time for them to reap the rewards. Lu Dehai shouted loudly, "Yes, Mr. Zhang. I will definitely do a good job." Zhang Yi said lightly, "It's just temporary. If you don't do well, I will change someone else." Lu Dehai is an alien, which is why Zhang Yi supports him. But it is not enough to have combat power. You must also have management skills, and the most important thing is to be loyal to Zhang Yi. He can give Lu Dehai a chance, but it depends on whether Lu Dehai is the material. Lu Dehai hurriedly said, "I understand." Qinling felt guilty at this time. Even though he knew that Zhang Yi deliberately supported Lu Dehai, he was too ashamed to say anything. At this time, Zhang Yi received reports from Xiao Honglian and Xingtian. It turned out that at the same time, their base was also attacked by a tide of cockroaches. Zhang Yi asked, "How is your side?" Xiao Honglian, wearing a red combat uniform, stood on the high ground of the factory, and the crisscrossing trenches below were already a sea of fire. The cockroaches were burned to death in large numbers, and the air was filled with the aroma of protein. Xiao Honglian smiled at the communication equipment and said, "With your reminder, we have made preparations early, so there is no damage." At the Qingpu base, Xing Tian also responded in advance, so there were no major casualties. Qinling was even more ashamed when he heard this on the hospital bed. Zhang Yi did not blame him for anything at this time, but just shouted that Zhou Ke had left the Chaoyu base. He said that he would not interfere too much with the operation of the three major bases. Let them handle their own affairs. Zhang Yi hates to waste time managing too many people. Next, it depends on what Lu Dehai does. Zhang Yi took Zhou Ke back to the shelter, took off his coat, and threw it on the sofa, but his eyes showed a thoughtful look. Zhou Kun helped Zhang Yi put away his coat, took off his protective suit, revealing his curvy figure, and sat next to Zhang Yi. "Zhang Yi, what's wrong? Did you find something?" Zhang Yi nodded. "I feel a little strange." This feeling is very similar to the zombie tide in Tianhai City. It is definitely not a coincidence that the three bases were attacked at the same time. Either a king with high IQ appeared in the cockroach group and controlled it, or someone controlled the cockroach tide and launched the attack. Besides, the shelter was not attacked. This is obviously not a coincidence. Zhou Kuo said, "You mean, someone wants to deal with you?" Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. Who knows? Maybe there is, maybe not. I always like to think about things from a complicated perspective, but it is easy to think too much and complicate simple problems. Now, I can't be completely sure. Zhang Yi is now an Epsilon-level alien. Looking at the world, he is also a first-tier strongman according to common sense. Few people dare to go against him. However, it is not entirely impossible. During the trip to Wugu, he offended all the countries including Columbia Ocean Fleet, Neon, Silla, Marley, etc. The East China Sea region also had complaints about him. He could not completely guarantee that those guys would not do something behind his back. Of course, from a rational logical analysis, this probability is extremely low. Anyone who wants to deal with an Epsilon-level alien, especially coming to the mainland of Huashu country, is extremely stupid. Could it be Zhu Zheng? Zhang Yi said to himself, but Zhu Zheng should not be so stupid. He rubbed his head and was a little confused. Seeing this, Zhou Qi immediately called everyone in the family over and asked everyone to discuss countermeasures together. Everyone gathered in the living room. After hearing about the cockroach tide, many people felt creepy. They are more disgusted than afraid of cockroaches. Few people can avoid goosebumps when they think of the scene of cockroaches swarming over and crawling all over their bodies. This is very strange. I remember that cockroaches are cold-blooded animals. They can't move at all in low-temperature environments and will be frozen to death. So in the past, cockroaches in the north have never been a big deal. But why did so many cockroaches suddenly appear? Zhang Yi said, "This is easy to explain. Mutation, these two words are the answer to everything. The reason why cockroaches are difficult to eliminate is because they have a strong ability to adapt to the environment and have terrifying reproductive capacity. Even if a large number of them die due to the cold wave, only 1 in a billion cockroaches needs to have a cold-resistant mutation to pass on this gene. If there is enough food, the offspring produced by a pair of cockroaches cannot be measured in numbers." Chapter 1092, Insect Killing Team. The appearance of mutant cockroaches did not cause surprise to everyone. Since humans can mutate, animals, plants, insects, all creatures can naturally mutate. They have seen it before, and there are 2 mutant creatures in their home. However, such an organized and disciplined attack on humans by mutant creatures makes them have to treat it with caution. In their hearts, there are still shadows of the zombie tide and rat swarm. Yang Xinxin thought for a while and said, "I think the story behind this matter is not that simple. It is likely that someone is controlling all this. It's not too early or too late, so it's definitely not a coincidence that the 3 major bases were attacked at the same time." Zhang Yi nodded. "I think so too, but I can't think of who it would be. If those powerful people want to seek revenge on Zhang Yi, they will not use such childish means. The cockroach tide can only disgust Zhang Yi and cause him some trouble, but it will not hurt Zhang Yi and his companions." Yang Xinxin said, "This world is different from before. Many things cannot be measured by common sense. So, brother, why don't we deal with it and solve the problem of cockroach tide first? At that time, I believe the other party will naturally make the next move." Zhang Yi leaned on the sofa with his arms folded, his expression somewhat helpless. "Pest control? I don't seem to be very good at this. The species that humans have spent thousands of years to kill has now become rampant in Tianhai City. Although Zhang Yi is very strong, he really has no good ideas for killing insects. It would be great if an insect killer team member could come to help at this time." Zhang Yi sighed. A sigh rang out in the room. Pest control is really troublesome. Although it is troublesome, what should be done must be done. Zhang Yi quickly made a plan with his family. Since we have to kill insects, insecticide is obviously the best. However, the cockroaches have mutated now. Considering the strong vitality of cockroaches, even if insecticides are developed, they may adapt. The same is true for flooding. Even if some cockroaches were killed temporarily, it would not be possible to completely eradicate the problem. After much thought, no one had a good solution. The world-famous chaos seemed helpless in the face of such a difficult insect. Of course, The shelter was not worried about being harassed by cockroaches. However, if cockroaches were allowed to proliferate, the entire Tianhai city would soon become a huge cockroach nest, which would give Zhang Yi a headache. After much thought, he decided to ask Blizzard City for help. After all, they were more experienced in dealing with mutant creatures. After receiving Zhang Yi's request for help, Zhu Zheng's mouth was about to be crooked with laughter. God knows how rare it is to have Zhang Yi take the initiative to ask him for help. It's just insecticide. We have dealt with this situation more than once. Don't worry, leave this to us. Blizzard City is not short of professional pest control personnel. Soon, under the escort of the Tengu team, a team of professional pest control arrived in Tianhai City. Their methods were indeed professional enough. They first captured several mutant cockroaches and then quickly prepared the medicine. Then let the members of the Tengu team cooperate and put these drugs in places where cockroaches are likely to appear. Wait a minute, will these drugs pollute the soil and water qualities? Zhang Yi raised his doubts. The insecticide expert who prepared the drugs explained to Zhang Yi, these are genetic drugs, specially developed for local mutant cockroaches. After taking the medicine, it will not die quickly, but will lose its reproductive ability and die after 7 days. Not only that, its reproductive instinct will become extremely strong, and then it will mate with the opposite sex crazily, harmoniously. Genetic drugs will spread in this way. After listening to this, Zhang Yi couldn't help but applaud. This is simply amazing. The biggest problem with cockroaches is that they have too strong reproductive ability, and using this characteristic to deal with them is cruel enough. After the insecticide expert's operation, as expected, the insect pests in Tianhai City soon weakened rapidly until they were invisible. Zhang Yi couldn't help but sigh. There is a sequence in learning, and there is a specialization in skills. Everyone is a screw, and if placed in the right position, it can play a greater role than the Epsilon-level alien. After completing the task, the insecticide experts left Tianhai City and left Zhang Yi their contact information before leaving. They said that if there are any problems in the future, they can contact them again. Before leaving, Zhang Yi asked them, is it possible that cockroaches will adapt to this drug and develop resistance? The insecticide expert smiled. This is a genetic drug that targets specific gene sequences in them. Unless these cockroaches produce a large number of mutations in their gene sequences, they will not be able to adapt at all. Zhang Yi nodded, and a meaningful light flashed in his eyes. Then I'm relieved. If there are any problems next, it can basically be concluded that someone is secretly tampering. Slack off. Then, just quietly wait for the development of things. In the abandoned cave at the Shishan base, an angry voice came from the dim, damp, and smelly space. Damn you, you actually killed the precious bug I raised. But it doesn't matter. As long as my baby can't be killed, it will become stronger and stronger. Anyway, the thing that Tianhai City lacks the least is food. In an abandoned laboratory, the faint brown light reflected an extremely ugly face. His face was full of ugly pits, and his 2 eyes were like Picasso's, one growing diagonally and the other growing vertically, with only a few sparse hairs on his head. He held a few reagent bottles in his hand and mixed different color medicines together. After a while, he made a dark green potion. You can't kill all the bugs I raised. Hee. He smiled like an insect, then turned around and grabbed a thumb-sized cockroach and stuffed it into the bottle. The cockroach struggled in the potion for a while, and suddenly strange changes occurred on its body. 7 or 8 secondary legs sprang out from all corners of its body, and then the whole body swelled several times and turned completely dark green. Pop! The flask was directly broken, and the cockroach was covered with green mucus and quickly crawled away. The ugly weirdo's eyes almost popped out, and an extremely ugly smile appeared on his face. I will raise the most difficult insects to kill. Zhang Yi, just wait and see. Chapter 1093. Fight the enemy. Less than 10 days after the cockroach tide disappeared, it reappeared from the underground of Tianhai City. They unscrupulously occupied all major resource points in Tianhai City. supermarkets, material factories, and all activity points around the three major bases, and even when Zhang Yi woke up one morning, he was shocked to find that Shujia town on the other side of Lujiang River had been occupied by a large number of cockroaches. It appeared again. It's just as I thought. Someone is behind it. The abnormal activities of creatures are definitely because humans are interfering behind the scenes. Otherwise, it is not in line with the laws of nature. Fortunately, in the past year, Zhang Yi has cleared out most of the supermarkets in Tianhai City. The important materials have been collected, and there is no need to worry about being damaged too much by the cockroach tide. But this is not a solution after all. Zhang Yi immediately called the pest control experts in Blizzard City and asked them to come again. Let the Tengu team escort you here. It may not be safe on the road. Zhang Yi reminded them. If someone really took action in secret, it is very likely that these pest control experts would be intercepted. A few hours later, Bailey Chongqing, Wu Di, and others arrived with the insecticide experts. This is absolutely abnormal. According to common sense, it is almost impossible for genetic drugs to adapt so quickly. I think there must be someone behind this secretly manipulating it. The insecticide expert frowned and expressed his opinion on the situation. He is a professional. He had vowed that there would be no more problems, but the cockroach tide broke out again in a few days. Of course, he had to explain it clearly. Zhang Yi said, I know that you have done a good job in this matter. But I have to trouble you to do it again. Even an Epsilon-level alien like him doesn't have a good way to kill insects. It's impossible to turn the entire Tianhai city upside down and kill the insects hidden in the dark underground, right? The insecticide experts nodded and immediately started to work. They caught some cockroaches again, and after studying them, they were shocked. Sure enough, they have mutated again. They're almost not the same species as the insects we found last time. Zhang Yi asked curiously, is it possible? A species has multiple major mutations in a short period of time? The insecticide expert replied, natural mutation is of course impossible. But if it is promoted by humans, it is possible. This is an era of mutation. After the biological mutation, it has all kinds of incredible abilities. Everything cannot be measured by common sense. Zhang Yi sneered in his heart. Now that we know that someone is behind it, the problem is easy to solve. He said to Bailey Chongqing and the insecticide experts, everyone, please stay here for a while and help me solve the problem of insect pests. Bailey Chongqing naturally had no objection, and the experts of the insecticide team also knew who Zhang Yi was and expressed their willingness to help him. Zhang Yi arranged accommodation for them on the second floor of the basement. Then, he called Yang Xinxin over to discuss countermeasures. It has been confirmed that there is definitely a human factor behind this. Xinxin, help me think about what we should do now to deal with this matters. Although he knew that someone was secretly making trouble, that guy would definitely not be stupid enough to run out and be discovered. Yang Xinxin said lightly, brother, I have thought about this problem a long time ago. First of all, we need to confirm who is likely to attack us. And what is his purpose? But this action, no matter how you think about it, reveals a weird taste. Zhang Yi frowned. Yes, this time it's inexplicable. It's not a year ago now. At that time, we would have a headache facing rats and corpses. But now, this level of problem can no longer threaten us. What's the point of the other party doing this? Yang Xinxin opened her cherry lips and uttered two words, chaos. He wants to create chaos in Tianhai City. Zhang Yi smiled. Tell me in detail. Yang Xinxin explained, the cockroach tide has no effect on you, brother. You are very powerful now, and there are not many existences that can affect you. But the three major bases are still very weak, and we are not strong enough. And you can't stay in Tianhai City forever to protect everyone, right? Zhang Yi understood instantly, and his expression became serious. You mean, he wants to attack you? Yang Xinxin nodded. If I were your enemy, brother, I would definitely do this. Even if I can't kill you, I can make you feel pain by destroying the things you cherish. She suddenly showed a playful smile and tilted her head to look at Zhang Yi. To hurt someone, to avenge someone as long as he feels the pain, that's enough, isn't it? Zhang Yi suddenly felt his skin getting a little cold. He subconsciously touched his arm and sighed. I've also thought about this question. As the king of Go, Zhang Yi certainly considered any consequences that might be unfavorable to him. This includes someone attacking his weak spot. This is why Zhang Yi has spent a lot of time and energy in the past few months to improve the strength of everyone in the shelter. As for the 3 major bases, although Zhang Yi does not have much affection for them, if they are destroyed, Zhang Yi will still feel a little sad. Ask yourself, if he is your opponent, under the premise that you can't kill him directly, you will definitely spare no effort to use all means to attack him. Creating chaos, huh? Interesting. This is really too interesting. Zhang Yi rubbed his eyebrows, and for a moment, he couldn't think of who was going to attack him. After all, since the end of the world, in order to survive, he has made many mortal enemies. But how do I solve this problem? Zhang Yi was a little melancholy. He is not an omnipotent person. Facing this kind of enemy hiding in the dark and using insects as weapons, he really doesn't know how to solve it. This is even more troublesome than facing the zombie tide. There are only tens of millions of zombies at most, and they can be killed by flooding or burning. But as long as there is a pair of cockroaches that survive under this land, relying on their strong adaptability after mutation and the abundant corpses buried underground as food, it won't be long before they can become billions or even tens of billions, hundreds of billions, or even trillions. Just when Zhang Yi was feeling melancholy, a white and tender little hand was placed on his shoulder. Brother, you don't have to worry. Chapter 1094. Plateau Village. Zhang Yi looked at Yang Xinxin, who was comforting him. Yang Xinxin smiled and said, "The other party dare not stand up and fight us, which means that his strength is not strong enough. He is just a clown. So, it is him who should be afraid, not you. Time is not on his side, but on our side. Please wait quietly for the development of the stories." Zhang Yi's anxious mood was soothed and calmed by Yang Xinxin. Yang Xinxin was right. He didn't need to be too anxious now. The more anxious he was, the easier it would be to make mistakes. You are right. Although the other party created a certain degree of chaos, it did not cause substantial damage to Tianhai City and us. If they want to target me, they must use more fierce means. Let's wait and see. In the next period of time, Zhang Yi asked the insecticide experts to kill cockroaches in Tianhai City. Those cockroaches are indeed troublesome, but they have mutated for too short a time, and it is impossible for them to have 2 strong individuals. Don't think that the Tengu team looks very weak when they go on a mission with Zhang Yi. But that's just because Zhang Yi's individual strength is too strong. Looking at the entire Jiangnan region, Bailey Chongqing and his group can do anything below the captain level without any hesitation. So before long, they once again suppress the cockroach tide in Tianhai City. This feeling is like using insecticide to kill cockroaches in the kitchen. Every time a batch will be killed, but soon there will be survivors to continue to reproduce. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry. He and Yang Xinxin have been monitoring the situation in the entire Tianhai City, trying to determine the location of the nest based on the action patterns of the cockroach tide. As long as enough samples are collected, the approximate range can be deduced through mathematical calculations. However, one day, Yang Xinxin found Zhang Yi with a computer and said in surprise, "Brother, I suddenly found something interesting." Zhang Yi leaned over. "Did you find a nest?" Yang Xinxin shook his head. "No, on the contrary. I found a place in Tianhai City that was not affected by the cockroach tide. This is very interesting." Zhang Yi looked at the computer, and a map of Tianhai City was displayed on the screen. The degree of infestation of the cockroach tide was marked with colors. But after zooming in, 2 blank areas were clearly seen. One area was naturally Zhang Yi's shelter. The other area was far away from the city, close to the edge of Tianhai City. This place was called Gan Village, a rural area in Tianhai City. That's right, even the biggest cities have rural areas. There are many such places around the urban area of Tianhai City. Strictly speaking, Shujia Town is also a combination of urban and rural areas, belonging to rural villages and towns. But in the outer areas, there are more remote places, which are real rural areas. This kind of place is too remote, and many local people in Tianhai City may never go there in their lifetime. Gaoyuan Village. Interesting, there must be something wrong here. I want to go there. Yang Xinxin said, Brother, be careful. This may be an enemy trap. Zhang Yi nodded. Don't worry. No one in the world is more careful than me. Zhang Yi never underestimates any opponent and will not relax his vigilance at any time when there may be danger. So, he quickly put on a full set of combat uniforms. In addition to the second-generation black combat uniforms, he also put on combat uniforms customized for him. In fact, he would check all the weapons every day, but before setting off, he still checked them again until he was sure that they could be used at any time. In this way, after he armed himself to the teeth, he called Hua over. Meows. Hua jumped into Zhang Yi's arms, raised his head, and looked at him with his big round eyes. Master, are we going out to play? Zhang Yi smiled and stroked it soft for a few times. I'm going out for a while. You stay at home and watch. Now in the entire shelter, you are the strongest besides me. You have to take the responsibility of protecting everyone. With Hua here, no one can break through the shelter unless an Epsilon-level alien appears.
Meow.
Hua understands. Hua jumped onto the sofa and then immediately changed to a focused expression, with eyes as big as copper bells, staring out the window. Zhang Yi thought about it and always felt that it was not appropriate for him to go out alone. It would be better to find a bodyguard to avoid accidents. So, he went to find Liang Yu. When Liang Yu heard that Zhang Yi wanted her to go out together, a faint smile appeared on her face. Okay. Without saying anything, she went back to the room, changed into a white combat uniform, put on black deerskin gloves, and picked up the long and heavy Tang sword Longming. Liang Yu walked out of the room and came to Zhang Yi, looking heroic. Let's go. After Zhang Yi confirmed the location of Gaoyuan Village, he opened the dimensional door and took Liang Yu to the place. 10 days ago, the cockroach tide just began to wreak havoc in Tianhai City. Tianhai City, Gaoyuan Village. There are always such villages around big cities. They grow crops as their main business and then supply them to the city, just like blood transfusion to maintain the operation of the city. Gaoyuan Village is such a village. Although it is a rural village, the living standard in the village is actually good due to the big city, like Tianhai City. Most of the villagers make a living by growing greenhouse vegetables and providing other living materials for Tianhai City. After the Ice Age came, they, like Xuzhou Town, survived by relying on their self-reliance and stored materials. But they are luckier than Xuzhou Town. They did not encounter Shishan Base and Zhang Yi, and because of their remote location, they were less affected by the zombie tide. So to this day, there are still many villagers alive in Gaoyuan Village. Perhaps those people in Xuzhou Town did not encounter Zhang Yi and Shishan Base at the beginning, and they can still live well now. But there are not so many ifs in this world, and there are always people who can survive in the cracks. Sometimes human vitality is not weaker than cockroaches. But this time, the sudden outbreak of cockroaches brought them great trouble. No matter how scary the zombies look, they can be killed one by one. However, those troublesome cockroaches would not attack their people first, but steal the food they stored in the cellar under the snow. After several attacks by cockroaches, the already scarce food in Gaoyuan Village has become even more scarce. So at this time, Gaoyuan Village Chief Gao Tianwu was very troubled. At present, the food in Gaoyuan Village can't last much longer. If they can't find a way to solve the food problem within half a month, I'm afraid the whole village will be in chaos. Anyone who has read history books knows what the hungry people will become. Either starve to death, or kill each other, or even eat their own children. At that time, Gaoyuan Village will be finished. Chapter 1095 Gao Tianwu. Gao Tianwu, the head of Gaoyuan Village, was sitting in his office, worrying about the food for the village in half a month. He knew very well that once there was no food, the entire Gaoyuan Village would collapse quickly. But after the end of the world, growing food has become extremely difficult. Some of them are good at growing, and they know how to use rotten wood to cultivate fungi, but that thing can only fill the gap in food. The most important rice, flour, grain, and oil are getting less and less. They have thought about going to the urban area of Tianhai City to collect more resources. As early as more than half a year ago, they tried to cross the vast snow and came to Tianhai City to inquire. As a result, the situation in Tianhai City made them feel cold. It has long been divided up by several large organizations. They are numerous and powerful, and they have hot weapons in their hands. These people in Gan Village are definitely courting death to compete with others for supplies. Thinking of this, Gao Tianwu frowned tightly, worrying about the future of the village. At this time, there was a knock on the door outside the house. "Come in," Gao Tianwu said. The door was pushed open, and a tall young man with a simple and honest look walked in. This was Gao Tianwu's younger brother Gao Chongguang, who had been helping him maintain order in the village since the end of the world. Gao Tianwu forced a smile on his face. "Xiaoguang, I asked you to go out and find supplies. How did you do?" Xiaoguang looked apologetic, and Gao Tianwu's heart sank when he saw this. "Brother Xiaowu, we have already searched the area within a radius of 10 miles around the village. How can there be any supplies left now? This time I took the risk to take my brothers to a farther place, but the snow was so heavy that everything was submerged. There is no clue at all." Gao Tianwu took a deep breath, his face full of worry. He knew how difficult it would be to leave the village to find supplies at this time. Even if there were still supplies that had not been discovered in the heavy snow, the snow that had fallen for a year had already submerged those uninhabited places. How long would it take them to dig the thick snow that was tens of meters deep with their manpower? Even though he was an extraordinary person with extraordinary powers, it was difficult for him to complete such a troublesome task. Xiao Guang continued, "Brother Xiaowu, if this continues, the food in our village will not last long. Some people have started to talk about it privately. Last night, I just caught a few thieves who tried to steal food. Should we teach them a lesson and warn other villagers?" Gao Tianwu supported his chin with one hand and said with a serious expression, "You can't do this. The villagers stole food because they were worried that they would not have enough food, so they wanted to hide themselves to get through the difficulties. To put it bluntly, they just want to live. What's wrong with them?" Xiao Guang said with some dissatisfaction, "But if everyone does the same as them, our village will be in chaos." Gao Tianwu leaned back in his chair, thinking for a long time, and then slowly said, "At this point, some special measures must be taken. Pass the order down. Starting today, the daily meals will be changed to one meal. Except for the people who are responsible for patrolling every day, other people should reduce their activities. As long as they don't move, they won't be hungry easily. When cooking porridge, add more water and less grain. In this way, the grain can at least last for a while longer." Xiaoguang said with a bitter face, "Brother Xiaowu, everyone is already eating less now. If you do this again, I'm afraid everyone will be resentful." Gao Chongguang said helplessly, "There is no other way. I have to make the villagers suffer first, and I will bear the blame. I will personally lead the team to find food these days. I don't believe that such a big Tianhai city is short of food for hundreds of people in Gaoyuan Village." Xiaoguang took the order and then sent someone to inform the news. When the villagers heard the order, they immediately started an uproar. A villager named Meng Chuan said immediately, "We can't get enough to eat every day. We have to add water to the porridge. Why don't we just let us drink water?" How did Xiao Wu become the village chief? If he can't get food, he shouldn't have been the village chief. Some villagers whispered, "That's not the case. If it weren't for Xiao Wu and his brothers, how could we have defeated the big villages next door? We would have been wiped out long ago, and it would have been a question whether we could survive." Meng Chuan snorted coldly, "The past is the past, and the present is now. No matter how well he did then, who can guarantee that he hasn't changed his heart now? Let us drink porridge every day, and he might be eating white flour buns behind our backs." Faced with Meng Chuan's harsh words, the villagers were not all ungrateful. Someone immediately stood up to accuse Meng Chuan, "Don't talk nonsense. Xiao Wu is not that kind of person." Meng Chuan sneered. He carefully looked around, and then whispered to other villagers, "What do you know? That kid stole the food and put all the food in his cellar. Do you really think he will share it with us? You are dreaming." I saw him secretly take out a big bag of food from the cellar, and I don't know where he went. As soon as these words came out, several nearby villagers opened their eyes wide. Are you telling the truth or not? Meng Chuan swore. How can it be? Is it true? If I lie, you can cut off my tongue. The rumor took on wings and flew away quickly in the air. Because of the food crisis in Gaoyuan village, the villagers were not able to eat enough, and they would feel resentment in their hearts. At this time, a tiny spark was enough to plant the seeds of doubt in their hearts. With the right soil, it only takes time for it to grow slowly, grow stronger, and finally turn into a terrifying monster. In order to solve the food problem for the village, Gao Tianwu had to lead the team himself to go out and find food. As an alien, he possesses strength beyond ordinary people, so he can better dig up the supplies buried under the snow. In the past, he had also been in Tianhai City, delivered takeout and express delivery, and worked as a waiter in a bar. He was familiar with the locations of some large supermarkets and hotels. He also knew that such places often have inventory. So he led a group of people, relying on their memory and the few high-rise buildings, and carefully explored in the heavy snow. After several days of fighting, they finally found some supplies in the snow. Although there were not many, they were loaded into 2 cars with dog sleds. Xiaoguang said happily to Gao Tianwu, "Brother Xiao, this is great. Let's eat these supplies sparingly, as they will last for several days." Gao Tianwu exhaled a thick white mist, looking a little tired, but his eyes could not hide the joy he had. "Okay, let's keep working on this momentum. I remember there is a big supermarket about 7 or 8 kilometers ahead. It's getting late. They should go back and have a rest first, and we'll take a few more people to look there tomorrow." It was dim, and the temperature would be even lower at night. The group did not dare to stay any longer and hurried back, dragging the sled. This video ends here. Thanks for staying tuned. Please subscribe to get more episodes. Thanks.